So what is sensory movement, and how can you as parents use sensory movement at home? I want to welcome my guest, Suzi Marks. She's a sensory movement specialist based out of Chicago. Suzi is a leader in her field and one of my favorite mentors. She's an amazing teacher. She's taught me so much about how to connect to the child through sensory information to help create possibilities for learning their next milestone and their next milestone. So a big welcome to Suzi Marks.
Since you and others that have followed me with my workshops for so many years, since back in 2016 when I started them, my work has escalated, has evolved so much in that time period. And a lot of it has come from working on and creating so many programs, my parent program, other workshops, even through COVID, I was on Zoom, and the Zoom helped me so much really hone in on my words, my language, slowing down, not going into excess detail, just taking it piece by piece. And so my work and what I land on when, let's say, I'm teaching a workshop now is far less trying to just throw the kitchen sink and the refrigerator and everything else at you. It is about a topic, a theme, and staying with it, but also being very flexible based on the audience, the people that I'm with, what they're asking, what they want, their interest. And so I'm turning them, everyone, into the possibilities that I always thought, that through our sensory system, through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, smell, taste, and our touch big time, we can make connections in a far different way. And those connections, relationship of parts, what we feel, all of that has gotten gotten really huge in the way I work. And I see it. The parents that have been with me for a while are saying, we see you just skyrocketing. We see you, whatever words they use. And I don't mean to sound like I'm being boastful. I'm just saying what they say. I'm tickled and giddy and all of that inside because I feel it and I see it. I want everybody who I educate, who are with me, to be able to feel that confidence and be able to go for it and trust exactly with what their body is telling them. Their body's asking questions. You're asking questions with your hands, with your eyes, with all of it. It all comes together in a flow.
Right. And you're so good at drawing, like at seeing that in other people and drawing it out of them. Yeah.
It's really fun.
And I also love like your unique take on, I think you call it sensory movement. Is that what you call it?
I call it a sensory, experiential sensory movement. Yeah. Well, our modality and what we're all trained to do is we work with the sensory system. We work with the skin, with touch, and we've, our whole body, all of our skin, our sensory organs, but so is so much more. And so what my interest started with was the eyes and the ears, and doing a lot of work with Dr. Zielinski, not only for myself, not a lot, but for myself, but with so many of the families that come here to Chicago to see me are also seeing Dr. Zielinski. So I go to their appointments. So over the last 15 years, I've been doing that and have a great relationship with them. So that really helped expand my interest that was already there on the eyes in particular. I've always watched eyes, could tell when people didn't feel well, when they were tired, when something was going on, just by their color, by the haziness or the brightness of their eyes, the size of their eyes, meaning from the skin itself, the expansion, those kind of things. And so when I work, I'm very aware of bringing in different sensory parts depending on how I'm working, whether it's a child or an adult, because I do see some adults too. So it could be through sound, it can be through smell, it can be through the eyes, and definitely through the touch. Sometimes it's through taste. Some of the kids, I've done things with taste, but then I build that relationship to what I see them doing with their mouth, with their tongue, to the parts of the body that I know connect to that. So I'm very anatomically oriented. That's my love. And so I look to get away from just the whole idea of linear, like this is an elbow and that, bringing it into the relationship of parts. And so not only do we have bones and joints that need to be able to communicate with one another, but we have our sensory system that helps us do that, that moves us, helps move a child or an adult forward. And without, seeing it, it's hard for me more to describe it. And I'm also one that is what I'm hoping with my teaching, that everybody will also feel that they can go just jump in and trust their intuition. Listen, your intuition is part of your sensory system. So as you listen and you feel, and, I find myself sometimes nodding my head or shaking my head because I'm listening to what the person I'm touching's body is telling me. And I work that way. And I'm always building the relationship apart. So my strong anatomy background has helped me with knowing the connections of our parts. And that's all that's important. From there, it's how those connections can mean something as far as a child moving.
How you're bringing that concept to parents, because your parents are the most in tune with their child. And the most aware, and they have the most intuition with their child. So being able to present these concepts to parents in a very accessible way, so they can help their child, is incredible, because parents are the most intuitive with their kids. So being able to draw that out of them. Yeah.
I agree. I just finished my segment 1 of my parent program in August. And the parents that attended were, first of all, I asked the question, which often always comes up: why are you here? And on my website, I have that listed as I think it's the very, very first thing of what parents want.
I read that and I was like, yep, check.
It's that they want things to do at home, exercises, whatever. Things to do is often what they call it with their child at home. Sometimes it's in between lessons they're already getting from a practitioner, and sometimes they're brand new to it, and that's what they want. They want to help their child at home. And so when I started my workshops back in 2016, doing 3 to 5 day parent workshops in Europe and here in Illinois, I just gave them things to do, gave them roll the pelvis, lift an arm, etc., and realized that eventually over the years, it wasn't just like an aha, oh yeah, got to do this. It took a bunch of years to realize that unless they're doing it on their own, feeling it, etc., how can I help them then be able to learn to touch their child in a way from the moment they lay their hands on their child, they're already creating the possibilities of more for their child.
Yeah.
And by making connections and in understanding in their own body relationship of parts. So the parents that came to my first segment all said the same thing, and all of it. And so as their homework assignment, I said, would you go home tonight and read my website? And then we'll talk about it tomorrow. Go into my NeuroTransformation part of my website. So they laughed when they came back the next morning. But what they came back and said is after day 1, they already were feeling so much. They came back and one of them said, I feel like I am getting a sense of what it's like to be in my son's body. Mm-hmm. So I asked, she talked more about it, and a few of the others had their things to say that were similar or different than that. But then they were able to push that aside and say, I know this is very early in our training right now. It's the importance of what I felt in my own body, what I was not aware of. It was when in the first lesson, I was clueless. By the second, she described what it was. And then it went on for 5 days. And so by the 5th day, that's when they were coming back every morning and just excited about, I was up all night and should I normally have been excited like that? I was exhausted when I left. but they were thinking and they were feeling. It wasn't it wasn't intellectual. They were coming from what they felt. And they already were, there was two from out of town. One was on Zoom from out of town. And so they were at home. And then the others were able to stay at an Airbnb. So they weren't going back home to their family.
Yeah.
And so they, so it's just really interesting what came out of it. And it came from this newer evolution of the way I teach now.
Yeah. And that's the secret, is it's if you can convey it to the parents that it's the experience of the individual having the experience. It's experiential. And it's not something you can intellectualize. It's something you really have to feel. And good teachers like yourself know how to have the parents experience it themselves.
Thank you for that. It's beautiful. It makes me weepy. I mean, I get very emotional about it. I got emotional when they were talking to me, and I don't mind that. It's who I am. I love it. I'm turning their brain on, they're learning, and I'm learning from them too. I go home at night and I'm like, wow, what they said, and where can I go with this? But also keeping it simple, very simple.
Yeah.
So the last day they had a chance to, I brought in touch, the start of touch. I have different levels of what it means to be able to touch. So the start of it, and then they got at the end they were able to practice a little bit on one another. First on me, actually. I had someone that was helping, Victoria Carmen was helping me on the camera. So they also got to do some things with her. And then I worked with them, and then they had a chance to work with one another. And so that learning experience was also interesting. And there was just a couple of things that we did. It was just the start of, but it was very different than what they thought it was going to be.
I remember when people, and I still have this experience, but like when people touch you, each person who touches you totally different than the other person. And again, it's your experience of that touch, just super interesting. And the information that each individual person gives you could be, you don't know what you need until you feel it, right? Like,
yeah, and that person is telling you. They're actually telling you when you really learn to listen. That's sensory listen, or you're listening with your eyes, you're listening here. It's not just hearing, it's not just eyesight, it's what comes in, what we process, how we process that information. Powerful.
Yeah, especially for parents, because that's what I noticed in my journey is at the first start, you think it's all just about physical skills. You just like, I want to fix physical things. I'm going to fix physical things. And you, as a parent, you do kind of like, I don't know, like disembody yourself because you're so focused on a goal of helping your child physically. And then you start to realize it's more connected, like everything's more connected than just a physical thing, right? You bring in sound and sight and the like learning and sensory information. And then you tie in your relationship with your child. Like that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And you're upgrading every time you add another layer into your like sphere. This is giant swirling sphere of like information, or I don't know how to call it, what you would call it, but it's affecting and changing and deepening your relationship with your child, which that's where you see the biggest growth, I find, between families, is the relationship.
Well, you said something interesting when we started, and I think we got it on the recording, about trusting parents' intuition, trusting that they sense that there's something wrong with their child. And the doctor, I just finished with a mom yesterday who said, my son's now 6 months old and he's doing certain things that just my daughter never did, her daughter's 3. And my pediatrician says, oh, he'll grow out of it. He'll grow out of it. So she came to me and she just said, should I be concerned about this? And she knew in her gut that there's something wrong. And I've heard that so many times, usually from a mom. So the reason I bring it up is that the sensory system is, is this, our gut, as my mother used to call it, listen to your gut, your intuition. And that's sensory. So it's helping parents then recognize that they're able to do that. Then, wow, what else is there? Because they can be shut down also. And I don't feel anything. I'm not feeling, well, they do, because they're listening to an internal experience. So we're from their gut, when it's directly about something that is being told about their child or whatever. And then it seems to be walls that come down. And so I'm looking to drop those walls, get them not even open, get them out of there.
You're like, that's exactly it. You blast those walls into possibilities. Like, you opened my eyes, pun intended, kind of, to like, not just a narrow focus on focusing on the physical aspect, but the whole sensory input and the whole child, the whole environment around you, around them. So your new in-person program called You First, can you tell us a little bit about?
So the details around it are, it was a program that was to have launched in 2020, and we know a little bug got in our way, and I chose not to do anything about it and not try to teach this until now. So it is a long program. It goes on for 10 modules or 10 segments. The first one started in August, and I've extended the opening to it to my October, my segment 2. So on my mindfulmovementchicago.com, that's my website, mindful1l, mindfulmovementchicago.com. If you click on NeuroTransformation, you'll get You First is the first thing that comes up. And so you'll read all about it. And in there, if you're interested, basically it's my passion to help parents with their child. It has been a huge passion of mine forever. I grew up as a twin. I am a twin with a brother that's a hemiplegic. And knowing what that was like as a twin, going to physical therapy with him and all of that, I've always had a very special place for parents, my mom, my dad, to start with. But then now it's by no accident I'm in this field. I've always been a voice often for parents, helping them with with ideas and things to do. And that's when I decided that this program needed to happen. Is called You First because it's called You First for your child and you. And so it's you having the opportunity to experience what it means to lie on the floor and just be, and listen to my words. You'll follow them and you'll do movement. And it's about you getting a chance to really feel what you're aware of, where your attention goes, how you have a sense of where you are in the room, where you are with somebody who's lying next to you on the mat. Is first and foremost about you. By you having the opportunity to feel how you organize your movement, awakening yourself to whether you pay attention, you're aware of different things, what you're aware of, how you move, is going to help you then, as the program grows, be able to touch your child in a way that's going to be able to provide them the information to help continue to move them forward, to help their evolution wherever they are, whatever they have going on. There's always, in my belief, more possibilities for them. If it means making them more comfortable and that's what you can do, that's it. If it means that one day your child may do fill in the blank, that's always the possibility. But it's how you get there. And so that's what You First is all about. You first, and then your child. The 10 segments are done in person. If you have to miss a segment, then it can be done on Zoom. I've said not more than 3 non-consecutive segments can be done on Zoom. then you would need to meet with me the day before we meet in person for that next segment, so that I can help catch you up with hands-on, because we'll be doing hands-on in every segment. We may have to go over some, I give little homework assignments too, very little homework assignments, but we would go through those also in person. In between the segments, we meet on Zoom for about an hour to an hour and a half. And in that hour to hour and a half, I'm there to help answer questions or to ask you questions so that you can answer your own questions. That's my teaching style, by the way. And then I also ask the parents to provide me with a video, 2 1-minute videos of the week before we meet in person or on Zoom, so that I can review how they're practicing on someone. It doesn't have to be their child at that point. It can be an adult, which is my preference, so that they're not dealing with all children who are very active and moving around. So then we can start, I can ask questions about it and give them the opportunity to fill in their answers. And there's never always just one answer, by the way. Questions add more questions, add more questions. And so that's what we will do when we meet on Zoom.
Like supportive and individual, and it just sounds so lovely. Exactly.
And it's a small group. And it's a small group.
Yeah. And that's exactly what parents have been asking you for years, right? Is this small group, high touch, individualized program to help the parent, you experience it so you can be so much more effective with your child.
Definitely. I still have room for in October, so you certainly can reach out to me via my email is fine, or my phone number's in there. You can always call me too, and I can talk to you about it. Off the top of my head, I think it's October 9th it starts, but I'm not sure I have that date right. I think that's right.
Once it's how many 10 segments over every second month sort of thing, second or third month?
I condensed it a bit, so there are some months where it's 1 month apart, and the bulk of them are 2 months apart. And the last segment is in November of 2024.
And it's all happening in Chicago, right?
Yes, in the north suburbs of Chicago. I'm about 45 minutes to an hour north along the North Shore of Chicago. And it's a beautiful area too, if you're like to get out and just walk. It's really lovely. It's open also to graduates of Feldenkrais, of ABM. If you're a healthcare professional, if you're a PT and OT, you're a speech therapist, anyone that falls into healthcare is welcome to attend. You don't have to be
as an Anat Baniel Method practitioner, I can attest. I've taken some of Suzi's trainings, and it literally changed the trajectory of how I interact with clients and my clients' outcomes. You totally, how do I say this? you opened my eyes to so much more possibilities than I thought possible. And it was just your teaching style and your concepts that you're able to convey to parents and professionals it's an amazing experience. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So that's fantastic that it's open to parents and professionals,
grandparents, aunts, uncles, anyone who's, if we're talking about children, their team is welcome.
I'm starting to see that more and more in my programs and my Zoom calls, and even in person, is they're bringing more of their support team with them, which is it's amazing. Yeah,
it is. It really is. Yeah, when we work, with what we do, and we work, the better that we can have anybody who is the team of the child. They're really getting a sense of what it's about. So when the families go home, they don't have a dad or a mom doing something different than what they're being suggested go on. They don't have a grandparents that are jumping in, or whomever. They know better when they leave. When my private practice, before they leave, if they're working with therapists, I ask the parents to I'd like to know what it is they're doing with your child. I worked in physical therapy. I'm not a PT. I chose not to go into physical therapy, but I worked in physical therapy and I grew up in it with my brother. And so I'm familiar with it, the protocol and that. And then when they tell me, I say, I'd like to tell you right now what not to be doing so that it doesn't interrupt the lessons that you're getting here, so that you have a chance to really separate and know what's really helping your child. And then at some point, it may be that those other things get reintroduced in what they're doing, but not right now. Are you okay with that?
That's so important, because each parent, like you're on this kind of journey, right? And those beginning realizations of, maybe this other thing isn't really working. I think it's an intuitive thing as a parent. You're just like, I don't really think that's working, but I'm not quite sure why. And it's so refreshing and nice to have another professional who is not judgmental about it be able to walk you through the steps and show you, and you experience, like, what is it like to be doing movements or exercises that aren't helpful.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And they, the parents too, which I really feel for them, is that when they see their doctor, sometimes it can come from a therapist too, but they're told they're evaluated more by their age, the child's age. And so based on that, the shoulds, what they should be doing. And I don't look at that. It's like, you can tell me a diagnosis and it goes in here and out here, and I'm just delicious with this child. And that's what I care about. And that is the way I teach too. When I'm in a course, teaching a course, it's who's in front of you right there. They're a human being, and I don't care how old they are. I mean, because I see possibilities that are there. So when a families come in, and I have this happen often, they start getting really scared as the child goes from 6 months to 8 months to 10 months, and all of a sudden they're 3 years old or whatever. And so they start that there's a fear that very much builds up.
Well, as a parent, that gap widening bigger and bigger and bigger the older they get. And it's really like, it's very panic inducing. It's very scary.
Yeah.
But when you come at it from like our point of view of, like, I'm sure you get this question all the time too, is it too late for my child? How old does this work up to? As my child is whatever, 10, 11, 12, can it still be effective for your child? And yes, because you're looking for possibilities. That's
Yep. My oldest client was 102, and she passed in 2020. My now oldest client is 90, and I was thinking about this the other day, because I work with so many kids and so many teenagers, and that here I have this. She's so adorable, and her life has been changed. That's what she says. She just wrote me a testimonial. She always comes up, and she's a little peanut. She's like 4'9", and she gives me this hug, and she goes, I just came back from this cruise, and I could do everything, and I went to this place and this place and this place, and I couldn't have done this before. And so I started thinking, when she left, it was on Friday, that wow, this does really work. Our work works, no matter the age.
When you're 90 years old, you can still see positive changes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Suzi, for chatting with me today. If you would like to learn more about Suzi Marks or her new program, You First for Your Child and You can go to her website, mindfulmovementchicago.com. The link will be down below. I hope you learned something new. Keep exploring movement, and we will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.